Hi. Family isn't about money, my father said. So I stopped paying their mortgage. It happened at a backyard barbecue I'd funded top to bottom. Steaks, coolers, even the propane for the grill. My dad said his line loud enough for the neighbors to hear. The kind of performative wisdom that makes people nod and pretend they understand. Then he pointed at the gate like it was a courtroom door. My mom stared at the potato salad. My younger brother, Ethan, smirked and revved his project car for the 50th time that day. I put down the tongs, wiped my hands on a paper towel, and walked out of a house I had, in every practical way, been keeping standing. Before I tell you what I did next, hit subscribe so you don't miss stories like this one. I post true, messy, human tales every week, and this one goes places. I'm Nick, 32, software guy in the Midwest. I'm not flashy. I like things that work, code that compiles, bills that get paid, doors that lock. For 6 years, things that work quietly included my parents' life. It started with a temporary boost to their mortgage when rates jumped. Then I added them to my cell plan because it was cheaper as a family. Then I bundled their car insurance with mine. Then came Wi-Fi, streaming services. And because I'm the tech kid, their smart home setup where my email was the admin of everything from the thermostat to the front door camera that I never announced any of it. That's the thing about being helpful. If you do it right, nobody notices. And if you do it long enough, nobody remembers how to do it without you at the barbecue. I'd asked Ethan a reasonable question. What's your plan after the seasonal job ends? He rolled his eyes like I'd asked him to donate a kidney. Dad, who loves sweeping statements, jumped in with the line about family and money. People laughed in that nervous, neighborly way, half at the joke and half at me. I left carrying nothing but my car keys and a feeling I didn't have a word for yet. Something between embarrassment and clarity. That night, I didn't pour a drink. I opened my laptop. I went through every account, one by one, the way you untangle a set of cables that's been stuffed in a drawer since college. Mortgage autopay, my card. Property tax reminders, my inbox. 2 auto insurance policies in a bundle with a multi-family discount, my name first. A family phone plan with 4 lines, 2 of which used more data than I do in a month, my account. Internet, my card. Streaming, my card. Cloud storage, my card. The smart doorbell, the thermostat, the garage opener. Admin, me. I wasn't just the son. I was the system administrator. I printed the statements like it was 2004 and laid them across my kitchen counter. The numbers didn't look huge individually. $128 here, $74 there, $219, $89, $13.99, $17.99. But when I made a quick spreadsheet and set a sum formula, the total hit like a hard stop. Roughly $2,300 a month. About $27,600 a year. 6 years, $165,600. That wasn't help. That was a second mortgage, mine, on a house I didn't live in. Memories tried to bargain with me. There was my dad fixing a flat tire in the rain when I was 16. My mom staying up with me the night before a science fair. Those were real things. They mattered. But right next to them were the more recent memories. Dad dismissing my job as playing with computers. Ethan borrowing my car and returning it on E. Mom asking in whispers if I could cover this one bill just for now. Somehow, just for now, had grown roots. I found the email where I'd enabled temporary guest access to the smart lock 2 years ago. It was still on. I found the insurance policy where Ethan's car sat comfortably inside my Safer Driver bundle, lowering his rate and raising my risk. I found the phone plan note where I'd paid the early termination fees to bring their old numbers over, because I was good with paperwork. I was good with paperwork. I was bad with boundaries. It would be easy to blame them entirely. But I know how habits form. You say yes because it's faster than saying no. You put your card down because you can. You tell yourself you'll fix it next month. Then one afternoon, your father tells you family isn't about money while standing on a deck your money helped refinish. What happens next in stories like this is usually chaos, shouting, something explosive. I didn't want that. I wanted something my world understands. Version control. Roll back to stable settings. Remove unauthorized users. Document the change log. No theatrics. No revenge for revenge's sake. Just accountability returning to its rightful owner. I stared at the numbers and thought about the part of Dad's sentence nobody heard. family isn't about money, but it does require respect. And respect looks like adults paying their own bills, or at least saying thank you when someone helps. I realized I'd been trying to buy peace in a house that didn't have any to sell that I opened a blank doc and wrote a simple, polite letter. 30 days to transfer every bill, service, and login to their names. I would provide the account info, the customer service numbers, and a list of what had to move. I would even cover the one-time fees for number ports and installation. After that, my card would be removed. Not a threat, a timeline, not punishment, a boundary. The clock on my stove read 12:41 a.m. Through the window, the neighborhood was quiet. A few leftover fireworks fizzed on the horizon. I saved the letter as a PDF and put it on my desktop next to a new spreadsheet labeled Family Accounts, Handover. Then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I shut the laptop and let the counter stay messy. Tomorrow I'd start making calls. Tonight, I wanted to sit with the math and the memory of that gate and decide which mattered more. I won't lie, it hurt. But here's the promise I made myself before I went to bed. No yelling, no insults, no scenes. If my dad thought family wasn't about money, I would agree. I would make sure money wasn't between us anymore. And if that meant stepping back long enough for everyone to feel the weight of their own key ring. So bit in the morning, I'd find out how heavy it really was. Morning came with that stubborn, gray Midwestern light that makes your kitchen look honest. I made coffee, opened the handover spreadsheet, and stared at column headers, service, account number, customer support, deadline. Before I dialed a single number, my brain dragged me back to where all of this started, like rewinding a tape to the moment the crack first appears in the glass. The first temporary ask was winter. Rates had jumped, Dad's hours were in flux, and Mom called whispering from the pantry like debt could hear her. "It's just the gap this month," she said. "You're so good with online payments." I remember sitting in a bank branch, the heater clicking, while a teller printed out an ACH form and said, "You're a great son." I nodded, signed, and told myself I'd undo it in 60 days. 60 turned into 90. 90 turned into I'll handle it after tax season. Then tax season came and went, and the autopay kept humming like a refrigerator you stop hearing until it breaks. The sell plan happened because I hate wasted money. I ran the numbers. For lines on a family plan beat 2 separate plans by a mile. In the carrier store, a kid in a polo shirt high-fived me for choosing the smart bundle. Dad rolled his eyes at the data add-ons, calling them toy features, then spent the ride home asking how to airdrop a photo of his new grill to his neighbor. A week later, Ethan used 12 gigs streaming cartoon videos in the garage and texted me, "Data cap is fake news, right?" The bill landed in my inbox. I paid it because "we'll square up later" sounded close enough to a promise. Insurance was easy to justify. I'd negotiated a solid rate, and bundling 2 additional cars into my Safer Driver profile shaved dollars off the top. I told myself I was saving everyone money. What I was actually doing was putting my name on outcomes I didn't control. When Ethan backed into a mailbox and called it a learning moment, my deductible learned something too. The smart home was my pride and their party trick. I installed the doorbell camera, set up the thermostat, named the rooms, and put my email as admin because, of course, I did. "Alexa, show me the driveway," Dad would say, then glance at me like he'd pulled a rabbit out of a hat. At dinner, he'd still make cracks about me playing with computers. But when the thermostat app suggested a schedule that saved $12 a month, I was suddenly the hero again. Convenience is a powerful drug, and I was the pharmacist. Streaming services were the softest slope. "We can share profiles," I said. Then came the texts. "Who changed the password? Why is my show gone? Can you fix the audio?" I was tech support for a living, and then I came home to do it for free. If I didn't respond, someone would log into another profile and rename it "Don't Touch," and we'd start the cycle anew. There were nice moments threaded through it, which is how this kind of arrangement survives. Dad grilled steaks I'd paid for and told the neighbor I was a good man. Mom cried at Thanksgiving because I kept the house going. Ethan promised to pitch. And once things pick up, we took family photos on the porch, fresh, stain catching the evening light, and I tried not to think about the Home Depot receipts sitting in my glove box. But then there were the other moments. The barbecue jokes about money not buying. Family. The Thanksgiving argument where Dad asked why I always had to make everything about numbers. The text from Ethan, Venmo you. Friday. That never turned into an actual payment. The time Mom asked me, in the driveway where the neighbors couldn't hear, to put my card down for the trash bill just this once, right after Dad told a story about bootstraps to his golfing buddy. The two realities lived side by side. Gratitude in private, performance in public. That IT wasn't just the money. It was the invisible labor. I knew which customer support menus to skip, when to call to avoid hold music, how to speak the language of systems so a rep would waive a fee. Can you call? They listen to you. Mom would text. You're better at asking questions, Dad would say. Like that wasn't learned from years of him treating my curiosity as an inconvenience. Ethan would send screenshots of error messages and then vanish until I fixed them. The family had learned that if they stalled long enough, I'd step in because I couldn't stand watching a mess spread. Yet that's the part one hadn't admitted in part one. I got a hit out of being the fixer. It made me feel useful. It bought silence where fights might have been. It turned holidays into manageable checklists. And every time I told myself to stop, something urgent appeared. A late fee notice, a broken router, a surprise renewal. Grown-up life throws sand in your gears. I had a vacuum and a compulsion to use it. I took a long sip of coffee and looked back at my spreadsheet. The names of the companies almost read like a family tree. The bank, the insurer, the ISP, the carrier. If my last name were printed on those logos, nothing would have felt different. That's how deeply I'd fused my identity with their stability that I scrolled to a tab called Triggers, notes I'd made the night before about the exact moments this stops being help. Public humiliation. Dismissing my work, promising payback that never comes. Outsourcing responsibility to me as a default. All had been flashing red for months. The barbecue just cut the ribbon on a reality that already existed. What I wasn't going to do was swing a wrecking ball. I wasn't shutting off heat in February or changing passwords to lock my parents out of their own house. I didn't want to win a petty war. I wanted fairness. So I wrote a sequence that any project manager would nod at. Week 1. Announce change, share list, send letter. Week 2. Start transfers with the carrier and ISP. Week 3. Insurance and streaming. Week 4. Mortgage autopay last, with confirmations in writing. If they ran into trouble, I'd be available during office hours, like I was consulting for a client. Not cleaning up a teenage bedroom. I added a line item. Cover one-time transfer fees. I added another. Create simple how-to guides. It felt kinder and, honestly, cleaner. If they failed to act with everything laid out, that failure would be theirs. The paperwork would be a mirror, phone in hand. I considered one more flashback that stuck under my ribs. Last summer, Dad bragged to a neighbor about refinancing, with my credit score as the example of what responsibility looks like. He didn't know I heard him. He didn't know that 2 hours earlier, Mom had asked me to delay paying my own credit card so we could cover theirs. Pride and dependence, braided together so tightly nobody could tell where one ended and the other started. I clicked save. Enough remembering. My present needed verbs. I dialed the carrier first. The rep recognized me by voice. Hey, Nick. Another upgrade. I smiled at the ceiling. Actually, I'm splitting the lines into separate accounts, I said. I'll cover the port out and any termination fees today. I just need clean breaks. We went line by line. No drama. Just clicks, confirmations, and final bills that would be paid once, not on an endless cycle. While I was on hold for the ISP, I drafted the email to my mom with the PDF letter attached. I spelled out the plan in plain English and added a gentle sentence at the end. This isn't punishment. It's us moving back to adult. I included the dates, the hours I'd be available to walk them through anything, and the exact day my card would no longer be an option. I left out the part about the barbecue. This wasn't about scoring a point. It was about handing back a weight I should have never been carrying alone. The ISP came back. We set the date for their new account activation. I removed my admin privileges on the router, leaving the Wi-Fi name and password as is until their install. The smart home app asked, "Are you sure you want to transfer ownership?" My thumb hovered over yes. Not yet. One system at a time. Boundaries can be firm without being reckless. By noon. My coffee had gone lukewarm and my spreadsheet had more green cells than blank ones. The first dominoes were aligned, and for the first time in years, I could see the end of a tunnel I didn't remember entering. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and listened to my apartment settle. No sirens, no shouting. Just the click of a mouse and the soft thud of responsibility landing where it belonged. Tomorrow would be louder. It always is when patterns break. But today belonged to process, to facts over feelings, to a promise kept to myself. I wasn't cutting my family off. I was cutting the cord that made me their power source. The first call came at 9:07 a.m. I hadn't even finished my second cup of coffee. The ringtone flashed Dad, but I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, Mom. Then Ethan. Then Mom again. The voicemail transcript stacked like an incoming storm. Why can't I get online? The bank site won't load. Did you change something? Dude, my hotspot's dead. What the hell? I'd left everything technically running. Their Wi-Fi was fine, their router still blinking, the power outlets humming. But the administrative control had shifted. My card was no longer the silent heartbeat. The autopay switch had flipped, and the system was now waiting for a new owner. By mid-morning, I was staring at my phone lighting up like a slot machine. Ethan's messages went from jokes to panic in 5 minutes. Bro, did you kill the net? LOL. Seriously can't stream. You better fix this, or I'll. He stopped short, probably realizing threats don't land when your car insurance is tied to someone else's signature. Then came the doorbell camera ping. I still had read-only access, just enough to watch. Dad stepped onto the porch in his robe, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing at the sky like bad weather had betrayed him personally. He tried the smart lock, then the app, then hit the doorbell twice, like pressing harder would bring the old system back. He didn't know yet that the admin wasn't his anymore. Around noon, the knock on my door came. Not from family, from the police. A welfare check. Sir, we had a call that your parents might be in some distress. The officer said, polite but cautious. Said utilities were shut off. I gestured them inside, pulled out the spreadsheet, the PDF letter, the receipts. Nothing's shut off. Every service is active. I'm just not the one paying anymore. The officers read the paper trail like judges scanning evidence. One of them chuckled, low and knowing. Looks cleaner than half the divorces we mediate, he said. They left with a nod, no citations, no drama. The only trace was the faint smell of their leather jackets and the sudden silence afterward. The silence didn't last. At 2:14 p.m., a tow truck rumbled down my parents' street. I saw it on the camera feed before they did. Ethan's Dodge Charger, the one he revved like a heartbeat at every barbecue, rolled backward onto the flatbed, chains clicking. His screams were muffled, but I caught one phrase clear as day. This isn't fair. Fair. The word echoed. For 6 years, fairness had been my quiet sacrifice. My credit, my income, my stability, all poured into making their lives look stable while mine quietly stalled. And now the same people who told me family isn't about money were standing in a driveway, watching a repo man do the math for them. By late afternoon, my inbox had a new flavor, threats dressed as guilt. Dad's email subject line, you'll regret this. The body, money doesn't buy respect. We raised you better. Mom's softer, but sharper in its own way. Do you want to see your father sick over this? Is that what you want on your conscience? I didn't answer. Instead, I drafted my own message, a clean bullet point list of what was already theirs to handle. I attached phone numbers, account logins, exact steps. No emotion, just instructions, like leaving a manual for a rental apartment. Around 6 p.m., Ethan showed up at my door. He didn't knock. He pounded. Open up, man. We need to talk. I didn't. The pounding turned to a kick, then back to pounding, then silence. When I finally peeked through the peephole, the Charger was gone, on a flatbed somewhere down the interstate. Ethan sat on the curb with his head in his hands, looking less like a golden child and more like a boy who'd run out of borrowed credit. I could have opened the door, could have explained everything, maybe even comforted him. But I thought of that barbecue smirk, the way he revved his engine while I walked out like a stranger. And I thought, if I open this door, I'll be holding the same bag I just set down. Instead, I closed the blinds, muted my phone, and sat back. For the first time in years, the chaos wasn't mine to fix. That night, lying in bed, I didn't replay Dad's insult or Mom's guilt trip or Ethan's pounding on my door. I replayed the tow truck, the clink of chains, the sound of a system resetting itself. Tomorrow, I knew, would bring more fallout, more messages, more attempts to drag me back into orbit. But for tonight, the house was quiet, both theirs and mine. And in that quiet, I finally slept like someone who wasn't paying for everyone else's dreams. The next morning started before sunrise. Not with my alarm, but with my phone vibrating like it owed someone money. 15 missed calls, 11 voicemails, and a family group text that looked like a crime scene. Dad's message first. You've embarrassed this family beyond repair. Do you want the neighbors thinking we're beggars? You think this makes you a man? Then Mom, your father is shaking. He barely slept. Do you want to bury him early? After all we've done for you. And Ethan, short and venomous. Hope you're happy, bro. You ruined everything. I read them in bed, the early lights slicing through the blinds, and realized something new. They weren't actually asking me to fix anything. They were trying to fix me, to shove me back into the role they liked. The quiet provider who never spoke about money in public. By mid-morning, Mom called again. This time I picked up. Her voice was soft, practiced, the kind of tone she used when smoothing over Dad's rants at family gatherings. Honey, can't you see what you're doing to us? To him? He's proud. He can't handle this kind of humiliation. You're supposed to support your parents, not tear them down. I let her finish, then said, I sent the instructions. Everything's ready for you. Call the numbers, transfer the accounts. I even offered to cover the one-time fees. That's support, Mom. Real support. I just won't keep doing it forever. There was a pause, then the sigh. We didn't raise you to be cold. No, I said. You raised me to be capable. And that's why you leaned on me. But capable doesn't mean endless. The line went quiet. Then she whispered, Your father says you're no son of his anymore. It stung, I won't lie. But I'd heard that sentence before, tossed out during arguments about jobs or politics, always rescinded once I paid for dinner. This time, I didn't rush to patch it up. I simply said, then he can pay his own bills as a non-father. And I hung up. By lunch, the story spread wider. An aunt texted, What's going on? Your dad says you abandoned them. A cousin chimed in, Dude, just pay the bills. You make good money, right? I sent back a single screenshot, $165, 600 highlighted in yellow, and nothing else. No explanations. No paragraphs. Just numbers. Half of them went silent. The other half sent emojis I didn't bother opening. That evening, Mom showed up at my apartment. Not pounding like Ethan. She knocked, polite, holding a pie in a foil pan like peace could be baked. I opened the door halfway. I made your favorite, she said, eyes watery. Can we just sit? No arguments. I let her in. The pie smelled like childhood, which made the conversation harder. She set it on the counter and leaned on her hands. Your father is devastated, she said. He can't even look at the neighbors. He says you're punishing us for giving you life. Do you remember how we struggled to buy you that PlayStation in middle school? We sacrificed so much. There it was, the weaponized nostalgia. She had polished it well. The unspoken message, we bought you joy once, so you owe us forever. I sat across the table and said, Mom, that PlayStation cost maybe $300. I've paid 500 times that since. Don't rewrite the math. Her lip trembled. You make it sound like we're nothing but a burden. I softened, but only slightly. You're not a burden. But the way we've been doing this, that was. And I'm done carrying it. Her tears came then, real or rehearsed. I couldn't tell. She left the pie, muttered something about, you'll regret this when we're gone, and walked out without another word. I stared at the pie for a long time. Ate a slice. It tasted good, but not good enough to rewrite history. That night, Dad sent one more email. Subject line, you'll see the truth one day. The body. We gave you everything, and you gave us shame. If you want to be a stranger, then be one. Don't come back when life humbles you. I didn't reply. Instead, I added another line to my spreadsheet. Not for bills this time, but for boundaries. Rule number 1, no fixing guilt. Rule number 2, no debating math with people allergic to numbers. Rule number 3, never confuse pie with apology. Lying in bed, I realized their tactics had shifted. First panic, then anger, now guilt and public shaming. What came next, I didn't know. But I was certain of one thing. The system was collapsing, and for once, I wasn't the one holding the beams. Tomorrow would bring cracks I couldn't predict. But tonight, I let the silence stay. The silence didn't last long. By the third day, the fight had moved beyond my parents' walls. It wasn't just voicemails or guilt-laced emails anymore. They'd recruited an army, neighbors, extended family, Even people from my old church who hadn't texted me in years that IT first, it was subtle. A neighbor messaged me on Facebook. Hey, I saw your dad outside. He seemed upset. Is everything okay? Then another. We heard you moved out and left them high and dry. That true. I didn't answer either. But the pattern was clear. My parents weren't just suffering privately. They were narrating their suffering publicly. And the script had me cast as the villain. By midweek, it escalated. At work, my manager pulled me aside. Nick, weird question, but are you okay? Someone called the office front desk saying your parents were abandoned and might need community support. Reception said the caller used your last name. My stomach dropped. They'd crossed into my professional life. I pulled out my phone and showed my manager the spreadsheet, the total, the 6 years of numbers highlighted in yellow. I'm fine, I said, steady but sharp. I'm just not their ATM anymore. He raised his eyebrows, let out a low whistle. Damn. Well, I don't need the details, but if anyone calls again, we'll route it straight to HR, document everything. I thanked him, but inside I burned. My family wasn't just tugging at strings. They were tying nooses around my reputation, hoping I'd panic and climb back into the role of fixer just to cut myself free. That evening, I stopped by the grocery store. As I reached for a carton of eggs, Mrs. Walters, the neighbor who always commented on our beautiful porch, stepped into my aisle. Nick, she said, voice dipped in sugar and steel. Your parents are telling people you've abandoned them, that they can't even watch TV now. You're better than that, aren't you? I looked her dead in the eye. Mrs. Walters, they had 6 years of my help. Over $165,000. If they can't figure out how to pay their own Netflix bill now, that's not abandonment. That's adulthood. Her mouth opened, then closed. She clutched her basket tighter and walked away. Word travels fast in a small community. I knew that conversation would spread. Good. Let the math travel too. But Ethan wasn't done. That night, I got a DM from one of his buddies, some guy I barely knew from high school. Yo man, Ethan says you pulled the plug on your whole family just to make a point. Cold. Didn't think you had it in you. I stared at the message, thumbs hovering. Then I typed back. Ask him who paid his insurance. Ask him who covered his car until the tow truck showed up. Then decide who's cold. The reply never came. The next morning, Mom tried a new tactic. A group email, subject line, family meeting. She CC'd half our relatives. The body read like a script. Nick has chosen to step away from his responsibilities. We are heartbroken, but we'll find a way to survive. Please respect our privacy. I laughed out loud. Privacy? She'd just BCC'd the entire extended family into a guilt bomb. But instead of replying with anger, I hit reply all and attached my spreadsheet. $27,600 per year. 6 years. $165,600. And one line at the bottom. I'm not stepping away from responsibility. I'm stepping away from enabling. The responses trickled in. A few uncles stayed silent. An aunt wrote, Nick, I had no idea. Good for you. Another relative accused me of being calculating. To that, I simply replied, yes, I calculate. That's why the lights stayed on this long. That night, Ethan showed up again. This time, he wasn't angry. He was desperate. His car was gone, his insurance canceled, and apparently, his friends had stopped letting him crash on their couches once the story of the repo spread. He pounded on my door, not with fists, but with pleading. Man, just cover me until next month. I'll get work. I swear. You know I'm good for it. I opened the door just enough to see his face. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice shaky. For the first time, I didn't see arrogance. I saw fear. But then he added, don't make me tell everyone you're the reason Mom's crying every night. And just like that, the pity drained out of me. You already did, I said. And it didn't work. Good luck, Ethan. I closed the door, behind it. I could hear him slump against the frame, mutter something about heartless, then stumble off, lying in bed later. I realized something important. They weren't fighting to survive without me. They were fighting to avoid survival without me. There's a difference. And that difference was about to crash headfirst into reality. Tomorrow would be the week's turning point. The grace period was ending. Bills were coming due. And for once, the red notices wouldn't be arriving in my inbox. For the first time in years, I actually looked forward to the mail. Day 30 came like a hammer. I woke up to sunshine, made coffee, and opened my inbox. For once, there were no bills waiting for me. Just automated account closed confirmations. I almost laughed. It felt like a prison door clicking open. But for my parents, it was the opposite. At 8:15 a.m., Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice cracked through the transcript. They shut off the internet. How are we supposed to live like this? Your father's trying to call, but the landline doesn't work either. Nick, you can't do this to us. I smiled, not cruelly, but calmly. The internet wasn't shut off. The account had simply switched to their name. And because they hadn't set up payment, the system froze. Fixable in 5 minutes with a credit card. Problem was, their favorite credit card, the one with my name on it, wasn't there anymore. By mid-morning, Dad was on the offensive. His email subject line read, "Final warning. The body. You've disgraced this family. You think cutting us off proves a point, but all it proves is that you don't care if your parents end up homeless. You'll regret this when we're gone." I forwarded it to my own private folder labeled Manipulation Archive. I wasn't going to let words, no matter how dramatic, break the wall I'd built. 18 noon. The first physical consequence hit. A bright red past due notice taped to their front door by the utility company. I didn't see it in person. I saw it through the smart doorbell camera that I still had read-only access to. Mom ripped it down before the neighbors could read it, her face pale, her hands shaking. Dad yelled at her for making a scene. The irony nearly made me choke on my sandwich. By 3 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Ethan. He didn't yell. He whispered, "They're freaking out, man. No Wi-Fi, no TV, Dad's screaming, Mom's crying. Just pay it, okay? You've got the money." That word, just, hit me harder than the rest. Just pay it. As if 6 years and $165,600 was a typo I could erase with one more check. I answered calmly. "Ethan, the account is in their name now. They can call the number. They can pay the bill. That's what adults do." He went silent, then snapped, "You're heartless." "No," I said. "I'm done being your crutch." And I hung up. By evening, the fallout had spread to their comfort zone. The streaming services were gone. Screens filled with login requests they didn't recognize. The thermostat app no longer responded, stuck at a default schedule. The garage door opener beeped an error. None of it was catastrophic, but to a household used to seamless convenience, it was chaos. Through the doorbell feed, I watched Dad pace the driveway, muttering to himself. Mom sat on the porch with her head in her hands. Ethan stormed out, phone in hand, probably begging a friend for Wi-Fi. It looked less like a family home and more like a stage after the lights cut off. And then, as the sun dipped, came the final call of the day. Mom again. Her voice was smaller this time, stripped of theatrics. "Nick, please. We don't know what to do. I can't even check my email. Your father's so angry. Please, just fix it." I closed my eyes. It would have been easy to cave. To drive over, log into the accounts, type in my card, restore their world in 10 minutes flat. But that would have reset the cycle. 6 more years. Another 160,000 gone. Another round of humiliation at the next BBQ.so. I said, steady but firm. "Mom, you can fix it. You just don't want to. I left you the numbers. I left you the instructions. All you need to do is step up. I can't hold the net anymore." She cried softly on the line. Then she hung up. For the first time in years, the silence after a family call didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. That night, I poured myself a drink, sat on my balcony, and watched fireworks from a nearby ball game. Their house might have been dark, but mine was lit. For once, the bills in my inbox matched the life I was living, not the life someone else demanded. Deadline day wasn't the end. It was the reset button. If deadline day had been their private collapse, day 31 was their public performance. I woke to notifications exploding on my phone, not from family this time, but from Facebook. My parents had gone live. The video was shaky, filmed from their living room. Mom sat on the couch, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, playing the role of the stoic martyr. "We never thought we'd be abandoned in our own home," he said. Our son, our own son, turned his back on us. After everything we gave him." Mom sniffled on cue. Ethan, off camera, shouted, "Yeah, he cut us off. Left us with nothing." The comments scrolled like wildfire. Some neighbors offered sympathy. Others gossiped. A few posted angry emojis. And then there it was, my name tagged, dozens of times, pulling me into their stage play. By noon, my phone was buzzing with texts. An old friend. Dude, what's going on? Your parents are saying wild stuff online. An aunt. Nick, family is everything. Just swallow your pride. A coworker. Saw your parents' video. That's rough, man. I could have ignored it. Could have stayed silent. But silence, I realized, would let their script become the truth. So I decided to answer. Not with yelling, not with theatrics, but with receipts that I took a photo of my kitchen counter. On it, I laid out the printed statements. The mortgage autopay confirmations, the bundled insurance, the phone plan with 4 lines, the streaming subscriptions, the 6-year total highlighted in yellow. Then I opened my laptop, typed a short caption, and posted it publicly. $27,600 per year. 6 years. $165,600. That's what I paid for a house I didn't live in. They told the world I abandoned them. All I did was stop being their bank. You decide what abandonment looks like. Within an hour, the tide shifted. Comments started flipping. Wait, 6 years. $165K? That's insane. Sounds like he already did his part. Some people doubled down, calling me cold, but others began defending me openly. Numbers don't cry. Numbers don't lie. That evening, my parents tried to counter. Dad posted a long rant about raising me without vacations, without luxuries, sacrificing everything. Mom commented under it. We bought him his first PlayStation with money we didn't have. This is how he repays us. It was almost funny. $300 held up as leverage against $165,000. I didn't clap back. I didn't have to. Someone else did. A cousin I barely talked to dropped into the thread. I think Nick's already paid for that PlayStation about 500 times over. Silence followed. For once, not mine. Later that night, Ethan texted me in all caps. Take down your post. You're making US look bad. I typed back one sentence. I'm not making you look bad. I'm showing what already is. He didn't reply. The next morning, I drove past their house on my way to work. Curtains were drawn. The driveway was empty. No cars, no neighbors chatting. For a family that thrived on appearances, the silence felt like defeat. The office, my manager stopped by my desk. Saw your post, he said. Smart move. Keep everything documented. You don't owe anyone an explanation, but if you give one, facts are your friend. I nodded, grateful. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was no longer the one on trial. My parents had tried to turn the town against me, but all they'd done was hand me the stage, and the receipts spoke louder than their script. That night, I updated my spreadsheet one last time. Not with bills, but with a new entry at the bottom. Narrative. Reclaimed. They could cry on camera. They could whisper to neighbors. They could send 100 guilt-soaked emails. But they couldn't erase the numbers, and they couldn't drag me back into a role I'd outgrown. Tomorrow, I knew, would bring the real turning point. Bills don't stop chasing just because the cameras are off. The repo man doesn't care about Facebook Lives. And neither does the bank. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to let my family face reality alone. By the end of the week, I was done with text wars and Facebook theatrics. If there was going to be a final round, it needed to happen face to face. So I called Mom and said simply, meet me at the diner tomorrow. Bring Dad. Bring Ethan. No excuses. The next morning, I slid into a corner booth before they arrived. I laid out a folder on the table, my spreadsheets, statements, and receipts, neatly printed, highlighted, and tabbed. Not for me. For them. They shuffled in 5 minutes late. Dad scowled like the coffee already tasted bitter. Mom clutched her purse like a lifeline. Ethan trailed behind, hoodie up, eyes darting. No greetings. No hugs. Just tension thick enough to spread on toast. I opened the folder and spread the papers across the table. Here's what 6 years looks like, I said, tapping the highlighted total. $27,600 per year. 6 years. $165,600. That's not love. That's a mortgage. My mortgage for your lives. Dad snorted. We didn't ask you to do all that. You volunteered. I looked him dead in the eye. No. You asked once. Then you asked again. Then you let silence do the asking for you. And I said yes, because I thought family meant helping. But what you turned it into was dependency. Mom's voice cracked. We just thought you could handle it. You make good money. We didn't think. That's the problem. I cut in. You didn't think. You didn't budget. You didn't plan. You leaned on me because I was stable, and you mistook stability for obligation. Ethan leaned forward, voice sharp. So what? You just throw us out to dry? That's heartless. I slid a page across the table. The insurance policy with his Dodge Charger listed under my name. Heartless was you driving around for years with me, carrying your risk. Heartless was you smirking at that barbecue while Dad told me to get out. Don't lecture me about heartless. The silence that followed wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the stunned kind, the kind where denial meets evidence and doesn't know which way to run. I leaned back. Here's the deal. I'll cover one last month of utilities while you get things straightened out. I'll even pay for a financial advisor to help you set up a budget. But after that, you're on your own. Non-negotiable. Dad's jaw tightened. We don't need your charity. Good, I said. Then you'll have no problem signing here. I slid another paper across the table, an agreement stating I was no longer responsible for any of their accounts, debts, or services. It wasn't legalese, just plain English, but it made the boundary real. Mom picked it up, hands trembling. This feels so formal. That's because it is, I said. For 6 years, we blurred every line. I paid. You took. Nobody spoke. Formal is what keeps us honest now. Ethan scoffed. What if we don't sign? What if we just keep doing what we've been doing? I smiled, calm as ever. Then you'll keep getting shut-off notices. Tow trucks. Late fees. Repo calls. But they won't come to me anymore. They'll come to you. And you'll have to answer. For the first time, nobody argued. Dad stared at the numbers. Mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Ethan picked at the sugar packets like he could hide in them. Finally, Mom whispered, "We'll think about it." Good, I said, standing. Because this is the only deal on the table. And if you walk away without it, that's fine too. But there's no going back to the way things were. I left the folder on the table and walked out. Behind me, through the diner's glass door, I caught one last glimpse. Dad flipping through the papers. His scowl cracking into something smaller. Not guilt. Not regret. Something scarier for him. Acceptance. The numbers had finally spoken louder than the excuses. 2 weeks after the diner meeting, I got the first proof that something had shifted. A photo landed in my inbox from an unknown number. Ethan's Dodge Charger, sitting in a used car lot with a giant neon sticker slapped across the windshield. For sale to, caption, no explanation. Just the picture. I knew what it meant. Ethan had finally done the unthinkable. He'd sold the car he worshipped, the same one he revved at every barbecue. The symbol of his freedom that had cost me thousands in insurance. For the first time, he'd traded pride for reality. 3 days later, Mom called. Her voice was steady, almost businesslike. We met with the bank. We're refinancing the mortgage. Payments will be lower, but we'll cover them ourselves. We signed the paper you left. There was no guilt trip, no tears. Just facts. I sat at my desk in silence, staring at the numbers on my screen. For 6 years, I'd carried their world on my shoulders, and in 1 month of boundaries, they'd figured out solutions I'd been told were impossible. Dad wasn't as quick to fold. A week later, he sent me a one-line email. We've got it under control. Don't expect thanks. I didn't need thanks. The absence of demands was thanks enough. Ethan texted me once more. Got a job. Not much, but it's something. Attached was a photo of him in a hardware store uniform, standing next to a stack of lumber. He didn't smile, but he didn't smirk either. For the first time in years, my phone wasn't buzzing with emergencies. No Wi-Fi's down. No cover this bill just once. No car won't start. Silence. Honest silence. And with that silence came something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. I went shopping for a new mattress. The one I'd put off buying because there was always something more urgent at my parents' house. I joined a gym, not because I needed to prove anything, but because I wanted to take care of myself. I even booked a weekend trip to Chicago, the first vacation I'd planned for myself in years, without calculating how it might impact someone else's bills. The best part wasn't even the freedom. It was the proof. Proof that my family could survive without me carrying them. Proof that my absence didn't equal abandonment. It equaled accountability. Proof that the guilt trips and the tears had been weapons, not truth. One evening, I drove past their house. The porch light was on, curtains open, the lawn trimmed. From the outside, nothing looked different. But I knew everything inside had changed. Because for once, the bills arriving in that mailbox had their names on them. Not mine. As I sat in my car, I thought back to that first night at my kitchen counter, staring at $165,600 in quiet debt. I remembered the sting of Dad's words at the barbecue. Family isn't about money. He was right. Family isn't about money. It's about respect. And for the first time in a long time, respect was finally on the table. I pulled away from their house with no bitterness, no anger, just relief. They were standing on their own 2 feet, and I was finally standing on mine. The war was over. The balance was restored. And for once, I wasn't the one footing the bill. The first night I slept on my brand new mattress, I realized just how long I'd been carrying someone else's weight. For years, I woke up with knots in my back, telling myself comfort could wait because family needs came first. That night, I sank into memory foam and felt something I hadn't in 6 years: peace. The change wasn't flashy. It wasn't a new car or some wild vacation. It was smaller, quieter, deeper. Cooking dinner for myself without my phone buzzing with demands. Paying my own bills and knowing the money was buying my life. Not propping up someone else's. Saying no to guilt, yes to boundaries. And finally understanding the difference. My parents and I didn't stop talking completely. Mom calls once in a while, but the tone is different. No hidden asks, no whispered bills. Just updates about her garden or a recipe she thinks I'd like. Dad keeps his distance, but when he does speak, it's about weather, sports, or small talk. Respectful, measured, almost human. Ethan sends the occasional text from his new job. Nothing dramatic, just short check-ins. It's progress, and here's the thing. None of it would have happened if I hadn't drawn the line. If I'd caved at the first guilt trip, or the second police knock, or the Facebook smear campaign, nothing would have changed. They would have kept leaning, I would have kept breaking, and 6 years would have turned into 60. Instead, I pressed stop. And pressing stop forced everyone, including me, to finally grow up. I wish it had gone differently? Sure. I wish my dad hadn't humiliated me at that barbecue. I wish my mom hadn't weaponized tears. I wish Ethan had shown some gratitude before the tow truck showed up. But wishing doesn't change math. And math was what saved me 0.6 years. $165,600. One boundary. That's the equation. Now, my life is mine again. I joined a gym, not for anyone else, but because I want to feel strong in my own skin. I picked up old hobbies I dropped: guitar, sketching, even running a side project in coding just for fun. I've started planning trips, little ones for now, but places I want to see because I want to, not because I'm waiting to see if family emergencies drain my savings first. Most importantly, I learned that love and money are not the same currency. Love is listening, respect, boundaries. Money can support love, but it can't create it. And if you find yourself paying for love, that's not love. That's rent on a roll you don't owe anyone. Looking back, I don't regret what I did for them. I regret how long it took me to stop. But maybe that's the point. Sometimes you need the breaking point, the public humiliation, the tow trucks and red notices, to finally see that boundaries aren't cruelty. They're survival. So yeah, I'm happier now, stronger, more focused. My family isn't fixed, but I am. And that's enough. If you've listened this far, I want to ask you something. Was I right to cut them off? Or was I too harsh? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Drop a like if this one hit you, and tell me in the comments, did I do the right thing, or should I have handled it differently? Because for me, the story's done. The account is closed. The chapter is over. And for the first time in a long, long time, I'm finally free. Bye-bye.